Live, and this is the Weekend Boost. I'm your host, Paul Lane, the author of The Caregiver's Handbook, a self-help love story. Guys, those of you who know and follow the show know that I always boost my friends at CALMA, the Colorado Alliance for Latino Mentors and Authors. And Karen Gonzalez, thank you, and all of you out there, shout out to you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being so supportive of me, and I just love being supportive of you too. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. Guys, I'm so excited because, you know, those of you who also know me know that I'm also on a continuous trip or experience or excursion, whatever you want to call it, journey toward healing. And even though my body's getting older, I want to try to keep it as young as I can. I wrote a blog the other day about, you know, just enjoying the life and enjoying the life that we have, and it's so important that we realize and think about that. And so as we age, we start noticing our body getting old, but we also might notice things in our mind, in our hearts, in our spirit that are not actually aging well, or they may not be feeling healthy, or they may not feel complete. And you don't know what it is, and you can't put your finger on it, but you know something's missing. And so there's a huge world out there that many of us aren't even aware of, and it's the healing world, and it's the world of you call it metaphysics, you call it, you know, New Age, you can call it many different things, but I have been very fortunate to have been associated with and to have been introduced to many, many authors and healers in my lifetime, and I'm sure beyond a doubt that I want to be one of them. And so some of the past guests that we've had on the show, some of the very influential and wonderful guests, Donna Denome wrote 8 Keys to Wholeness, Tools for Hope-Filled Healing. And this book has actually been translated into at least 8 languages, and that I know of, and maybe more now. So that is one that we've had on the show. Probably about 3 shows back, we had my friend Victor Archuleta. Victor wrote this book, The Power of Healing, Simple Practices to Promote Well-Being. And Victor is such a great guy, such a humble guy. I'm going to be having him back on the show. I talked to him last week, and he does this thing called cranial sacral therapy. Oh my gosh, guys, that is such a cool thing. But anyway, that is another one. And then the other one is Cariña Cariñosa, a shaman that I also met from Austin, Texas. Cariña, I think right now is probably in South America because I have not been able to reach her by phone. But she wrote this wonderful book, Enlighten the Fuck Up. And it's an empathetic psychic healer's weird stories, tough lessons, and resources. So Karina was just such a dynamic individual and such a fun person to talk to and be around. I really miss you, Karina, and if you're listening, I'd love to have you back on the show again soon. I talk about manifestation on the show and gratitude, and that's one of the things that I really base my life on, and really is gratitude. But I believe very strongly that wherever we go, we draw into us what we think. You know, they say you become what you think about most, and it is such a true statement. And the other night, Dee, my wife, and I went for a ride for a piece of pie at Village Inn. And we just decided, yeah, let's go in there. And we saw this great big party, and we could feel the energy there. It was just like they're celebrating something big. And, you know, we kept to ourselves, but I couldn't help but overhear someone saying, oh, they're releasing the book. And I'm like, oh, book? And so this young lady got up to go to the bathroom or pay the bill. I don't know, but I stopped her. I said, hey, excuse me. And Lisa Gunshore was the dynamo that I came across. And it was a great experience, man, because Lisa just released a wonderful book called Enlightenment Pie, a natural process for healing. And I mean, this is right up exactly the kind of thinking that I have. And so we talked, and her book was actually really in the process of officially being released. So I was able to get one of the first copies, and oh my gosh, guys, as I hold this book, it not only feels good, but it's heavy and it's solid, and the pages are nice and thick, and the artwork and the photography is all in color, and it's broken down in a way that you can not just take this book and use it, but you could take it and digest it and really chew on it. I was telling her this morning, we were gobbling it up. And that's, you know, that's how I really view my books. This week has been a really rough week. As you know, we had, you know, Thanksgiving on Thursday, and my 102-year-old Aunt Rose passed away on last week, and we went to her funeral, and we were gone all day and all evening Tuesday. So Tuesday and Thursday. My week was pretty well broken up. But we were able to really spend some quality time sitting down and reading the words that Lisa had written. And with that, I just want to welcome you, Lisa. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here.
It's
and
truly
thank you for hosting me. And it's also just amazing, the synchronicity of us meeting over pie.
Isn't it? Isn't it? Yes. Yes. And I mean, of all things pie, enlightenment pie. And so, we talked a little bit, before we got together, and we talked a little bit about pie, the enlightenment pie, and how it's aptly named because, when you, in the book she talks about when you put together a pie, you get all the ingredients and they're all, I made a pumpkin pie and that thing was, that's exactly as you said, it's all watery, and you put it in the oven and you're like, oh, come on, and an hour goes by and you go over there and you jiggle it and you see that everything's firm, and and you take it out and you let it cool. And you cut into it and everything's nice and solid and everything tastes just right and the crust is just perfectly flaky, and you take that bite and it's like, oh yes, this is exactly what I wanted to do.
Yes.
And so that was such a great name for your, great title for your book.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I love food, and as we were talking about before we went live, I went to culinary school. That was kind of the beginning of my journey as an adult, and so food's been a part of my life, and baking and pastry was my forte, and I think it's pretty funny that I'm allergic to wheat, barley, malt, and dairy.
Oh, man.
And I've had to relearn how to cook everything, and when you think about baking, there's so much, it takes patience, it takes love, it brings your family together, and so I felt like it was such a good representation of what it is to heal, and
yes,
what compassion and enlightenment, it's all built into that. You need patience with yourself to be able to heal. You need compassion for yourself, love for yourself.
And it's important that all the ingredients go into that pie, because if you take a pie, for example, and you don't put sugar in it, it looks beautiful, it looks perfect, but until you take a bite in it, something's missing. And so all of the components that are associated with healing really need to be there. I mean, if you start healing and you leave one part out, it's very easy for you to have an incomplete picture.
Yes.
And so when the way you've put this, you put all the ingredients together in a very simple, comprehensive way that someone could take this and really, really take it apart and read it. And this is not a one-day read, guys. I just want to warn you.
No, it's not.
You have to take some time. It takes 7 days to get through the first chapter, or just the first section about, every day you want to basically meditate, and you want to go through and follow the guidance of the book, and then self-evaluation. Oh man, self-inquiry. There's an ancient saying. It says, "Man, know thyself."
Yes.
I was so fortunate. I heard those words when I was 20 years old, and I always pondered them over and over, and I always strive to fulfill that. And it's a difficult thing because we're a very unknowing being,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the things that I want to say that's so important about this book is it's self-healing.
Yes.
And just like know thyself, Abraham Hicks, famous trance channel, right, said, heal thyself. And I think that that's what's so important to me for everyone to know about this book and about the processes. This is about you taking control of your life, stepping into the creator role, and creating a new self. And you need all those foundational tools like you were talking about. So, I think gone is the idea that you go to a healer and they heal you. Now that healing work isn't always sustainable, and it doesn't take you to the next level. When you learn the tools to heal yourself, you can just keep going and going and going, and it's that spiral. You keep going into another layer and another layer of everything that you're learning about yourself. And I was amazed at what I didn't know about myself, in this healing journey, like learning my food allergies. I really didn't understand how to eat.
No kidding.
Think about that. And that links to codependency. When you think of Pia Mellody, who was a huge forefront teacher and psychologist of codependency, it starts with these 5 integral pieces of what you have to learn as a kid. How to take care of yourself, right? How to have functional boundaries, how to eat, how to, take care of your health, how to dress. Like all of these simple things we learn as a kid, but we really don't learn. We don't know exactly how to take care of our body because every body is so different. We don't actually know what a functional boundary is for us. Like, what are we capable of handling? What are we not capable of handling? And so I think there's this interesting journey of self-discovery, of learning, like, what does my body need? You know, there's an activity in the book, Mindfulness of the Body. And to be honest, Paul, that was really how this all started. It was long before this book started in 2005. I was going to the clairvoyant training program with the Berkeley Psychic Institute to better understand my own gifts, because I've had them since I was a little kid as a psychic medium. And in that journey, we were given this activity to do, this assignment, which was to connect with our body. And so I went and sat in a park, and it was probably this time of year, it was probably Thanksgiving time. And at the time, I weighed 247 pounds, so I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I put my hands on my body, and that's what this activity is.
Oh, we did that last night.
Did you? I want to hear. Well, I want to hear that too. And I put my hands on my body, and I really asked, like, what is this? And I remember starting to cry because I realized how disconnected I was from myself and from my body. And I started to look in the Akashic records with the training that I received and my abilities, and noticed in these Akashic records, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's really your book of life. It's your soul imprint. And started to see where I had contracted as a soul to carry this weight. And I started to ask myself, like, how do I release these contracts? And I believe, this is not in the book, by the way, but I believe that I actually brought some of the candida and the parasites on in trying to heal those pieces of myself. I think they were coming here to show me. I think the parasites were coming to show me how I was allowing vampiric energy to feed off of me. And so that was how this started, really, was mindfulness of the body, connecting with myself. I cannot express the power of just putting your hands on your body and connecting with it. So I want to hear what happened when you did the activity.
I will. I want to talk just a moment about soul contract. You mentioned the soul contract. So many of us we've heard the term, and we don't, you know, it kind of goes by us, and we don't really ask, what does that mean? What is a soul contract?
Well, a soul contract is actually pretty simple. I mean, you think about when you make a contract, like a lease agreement to rent an apartment. It's the same thing. You create a contract with another soul to have some kind of experience.
Whether it's karmic or...
Exactly. It can be karmic, where, hey, I did this to you, so now I'm going to have this experience and this life experience. It could be that you're wanting to support or help someone. So a lot of my contracts around my weight was me wanting to support others so that they didn't feel alone.
Wow.
So it was that kind of contract. We make contracts when we receive initiation. You know, I took the Bodhisattva vow with the Dalai Lama in 2009, and that's
I saw
and
that.
that's a contract. That contract is I chose to give up nirvana or enlightenment or whatever, however you want to call it, for the next 3 eons, they say. I mean, who knows what the timing really is, until all sentient beings are enlightened. So I might have made that contract or taken that vow in multiple lifetimes. I have no doubt I did, by the way, and am continuing to perpetuate that vow in every single lifetime. And so we make these contracts, and there's all sorts of books and teachings and understandings. The Berkeley Psychic Institute had a way that they taught it, where you can go into your Akashic records, your book of life, and you can actually go in and change those contracts. You can rewrite contracts, you can break contracts, but of course there's a fallout to that. So in breaking the contracts I had about my weight, it brought on what I think was this chance to purify. It was like, oh, guess what? Now you're going to get sick. You're going to learn all of these things about your body, how to take care of yourself so that you can heal. So it's kind of, I mean, it's fascinating to me, because when I think of the chain of events, it was over multiple years, and at the same time, it seems obvious looking back what was really happening, and it started in 2009 for sure.
And you can't see it as you're standing there in your life. You can't see all those things happening. Yeah, that was fascinating, because You know, as you know, my last show, I had Christine Morton, the past lives regression therapist, and we talked about, you know, past life contracts that I had made, and any, you know, all of those burdens that I was carrying, you know, we sent them away. Anything that didn't serve me, we released them, and it was such an experience that even now, a month later, I'm still seeing the benefit of it. And so, guys, I mean, I really, really encourage you to delve into this and look deep into yourself. And, you know, there's plenty of books. This is really a great start. It's an easy read. And I don't want to get too much off on the topic of soul contracts, but it's something that really affects us, whether we know it, believe it, or agree with it or not. It really is there.
Yeah.
So there's a section in the book that really, you know, it's self-inquiry. And going back to Man Know Thyself, when you do self-inquiry, you really have to take an objective look at yourself from many angles. You know, one of the things that's in the book is an exercise where you put your hands on a heavy part of your body, and for me it was my stomach. And what I did was I set my timer.
Most of us.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my hands on my butt, but anyway, I set the timer for 24 minutes, and we just sat there, and I have a little fountain that's running in my living room, and we just sat there and we listened to it, my wife and I, and we just sat there, and we closed our eyes, and you know, the book says you might see this or you might see that, and I said, I'm not going to make any preconceived notions. I'm just going to sit here, and all of a sudden this wave of I don't know what I want to call it, information, knowledge. I have a situation, you know, I have a daughter that doesn't speak to me, and I love her dearly, and I miss her, and I've tried to figure out how can I make this right? How can I communicate with her that I love her? You know, how can I tell her I'm sorry if I've wronged her? You know, and there's no answer. There has not been an answer, and I know that this is eating me up inside, and all of a sudden this peace just came over me, and it was just like I can only describe it as a coolness that just started at my top and just came down, and it was like my body cooled. And all of a sudden I said, oh, I know what I'm going to do. And when I go home today, I'm going to take action. But I have a definite and exact plan of what I'm going to do. If it's going to work or not, I don't know. But I know this. I feel very confident that putting my hands on this really helped me to understand that there's a way. It helped me to understand that I'm not helpless in this quest for peace, you know.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So it was really moving for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes, it really did move me. It moved me. I can't even think of another word. It moved me. I really like that at the end of that section you have these little QR codes. I don't know if you can see them. But well, we thought, well, let's try it, you know, and so we did it, and there was a video of you interviewing Julie Hoyle.
Yes.
And she's Australian or British?
She's British, and she lives in the Bahamas.
And this woman, oh my gosh, she was such a pleasure to listen to because she made such sense, and you know, she talked about so many different things, but one of the things that was revelatory for me was this darkness that's inside of me, and this heaviness that I've carried through many years, and actually it's really been releasing over the last 6 months more than any time in my lifetime. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't have an identity for it, and I've always heard this term shadow work, and all of a sudden she started talking about shadow, and well, it was also in the introduction to that, and so. What is a shadow and what is shadow work?
Oh, I love this question. You know, Julie is the one who really introduced me to shadow work also. And I have a very strong love of Carl Jung as well, and Jungian philosophy talks about the shadow. But, you know, in the Vedic scriptures, there's a truth, a universal law or a truth, which is you cannot have one without the other. So you cannot have light without dark or love without hate, right? One exists, and if one exists, the other exists. And so the idea of shadow work, I almost don't like that term anymore because I think it's overused, right? We get in these buzzwords, these terms. But it's really being willing to see the opposite, the darkness, the hard part. And, you know, you have interviewed healers and you're familiar with metaphysics. And I think in the metaphysical community, what I noticed, especially, you know, once we hit 2010, things got really fluffy, right? We have angel cards and, you know, these really positive messages and affirmations and all these things. And it almost like left the darkness. And I'm a Scorpio, I'm a psychic medium, and so I live in that darkness. I love the darkness. And the occult mythology has a lot of darkness, and I think there's this unwillingness to see the darkness. And so what is shadow work? It's being willing to see yourself as you really are.
Ooh, and that's a hard, and the book talked about how hard that is, and it is, you know, because, and in the book it says, you know, think of somebody you are, a good, you know, all of the good things you know about someone. You know, they're kind, they're loving, or in relation to yourself. I'm kind, I'm loving, I'm generous, I'm whatever. And then all of a sudden you look at the other side of that and you say, I'm unkind, I'm not generous, you know, I'm not friendly, I'm not at peace, you know, whatever that case may be. And it's like, ouch.
Yes. Well, and I'll use my example of anger because it's my favorite example. So I'm Irish, so, you know, we definitely have tempers for sure. And anger was something that was part of my initial shadow work. Is really, I think anger was what was my unlock to understanding shadow work. And so that's why I always share this example. You know, is why am I angry, right? We think anger's bad, it's wrong, right? And so the first thing your mind has to do is say, well, how is anger serving me? And the egoic mind is going to say something to you like, well, anger doesn't serve me. It's bad. I shouldn't be doing it, right? Bad. So you have to kind of move past that. So as you journal, as you contemplate, and shadow work to me and self-inquiry or svadhyaya is not something you journal in a day. You know, people want to sit down, you want to write for 2 hours. Don't do it. You want to think about it, because what's going to happen is you're going to do the dishes and you're going to be like, oh, that's how anger's serving me. And what came up for me is, well, what happens when I get angry? So I had to really think about that for a few days. And what happens when I get angry is I want to be alone. You know, I usually want to leave the house or go to my room by myself, or I don't talk to the person I'm angry at, right? Like, it was creating something. Well, what was it creating? A boundary. And so that was an unlock for me, where I realized anger is providing a boundary that I am not willing to provide for myself. Whoa, it is serving me. Right? Big thing. And so it's not that doing shadow work made anger go away. But what it did is, when I do get angry, I immediately stop and ask myself, where did I not say no? Where did I not have a boundary? Like, something's overstepping here. Like, what is happening here? And so instead of being angry for 2 weeks and not talking to your friend because you're mad at them, what happens is within an hour, within 20 minutes, maybe even immediately, you're like, oh, I should have said no to this and that, or I should have had this boundary with this. And it diffuses the anger. And so that's really what shadow work is. It's really understanding how our shadow is actually supporting us. And it begins to integrate it or crystallize it so that you can become one with your shadow. It's not really about like disowning.
It's not disassociating yourself at all.
No, it's actually bringing it, it's hugging it in, it's holding it,
embracing
it's saying, yes, and understanding, wow, you're part of me too. This is cool. You're teaching me something when you show up, and loving it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That was profound. That is really, I think it's liberating, because so many times, you know, I think most of us can identify, you know, that we have that shadow or those darknesses within ourselves, and so many times we fight it, or we use it against ourselves, I should say, I guess. And, you know, once we start to understand that and learn that it's part of who we are, and that it is understandable, I guess.
Yeah.
Then it really does give us that freedom, that liberation to really be ourselves, you know, authentic.
Yes. And that's when the creativity and the Shakti and all the energy starts to happen. Like, all of my writing and my content and my YouTube channel and all of the things I've created really came after I had integrated my shadow. And it still exists, you know, there are days where I still have self-loathing, or I'm still angry, or I'm still sad. Like, those days still exist. And the whole purpose and point of my process is that it's a way back in. You know, when those things come up, you can go back to the tools, back to my 4-step process, and back into yourself, and you can remember, oh yeah, this is what it's teaching me, this is what it's showing me. It takes you back into a place of compassion and love and acceptance and forgiveness and all those things that we want to have in our life, because we're going to get off track. I mean, that's what happens.
Yes, and it's okay. It's okay to get off track, and you know, it's easy to get back on too. You know, and there's so many times when I'm going through life and I have an episode where I get angry, and I've noticed a change in myself since my past life regression. I've noticed that things that would really upset me just are almost like, wow, it's almost, instead of saying, ooh, that pisses me off, I'm saying, wow, that's interesting, you know. For Thanksgiving, we were all there and we were getting ready to eat, and I'm stressed out because I wanted to put on a nice, we hosted, and we get all the way to dinner and we don't have any mashed potatoes. And I mean, I was just like so calm about it. It was like, oh, this is so cool feeling this way. I went over there and we grabbed a bunch of potatoes, and 3 of us started peeling them and chopping them, and you know, I put water on the boil, and we had mashed potatoes with dinner, you know. And it was like, that could have been a real crisis. So that could have created a real argument in the kitchen, but everybody was really just so calm about it. And it was a small example, but it was really something that really could have set the whole day off. You know?
Yeah, it's amazing how the more you start to practice self-inquiry and looking at your own dysfunction, it's amazing how much it reduces all of these stressors and triggers that we have in our life. And you acknowledge, I'm triggered, and just by acknowledging it, the energy dissolves, which I think is what's the most powerful to me about shadow work. Is as soon as you notice it, and that's what happened with my healing, with the candida and the parasites and the mold, all of those things, like working through those, as soon as I acknowledged what it was actually showing me, then the healing began. It was very simple. And I believe it works in conjunction with the physical piece. I think the physical action of whether it's diet or supplementation or natural detox or whatever that is, the physical action, I think, is our contract in the human form. I think that as a human being, our contract is, I have to take these physical steps to bring this spiritual energy into form, to show that I've learned the lessons, to show that I can be disciplined, to show that I can heal these aspects as you do the spiritual work as well. And I don't think anybody is really talking about the spiritual components of these health issues, and I think that was part of why I wanted to write about it, because I think understanding the spiritual components is what allowed me to do the physical work to heal.
That makes sense. That really makes sense. One of the parts of healing is meditation. And I was so grateful reading about the meditation, because I always go through with my wife. She doesn't really like to meditate because she drifts off, and she can't think, and she can't meditate because she can't focus. And I read to her, you know, it's okay, you know, meditation is not the lack of thought. Meditation is really having those thoughts go by without judgment or without attachment. And so when we read those words, I don't know, it just brought a different level for her. I mean, it was almost like I saw a light go on in her head. She goes, oh, yeah, that's okay, man. You mean, so what you're saying is, it's okay if I think about, you know, what I'm going to cook for dinner tonight, yes, or what I'm going to wear, yes, or whatever the case may be. Whatever thoughts go through your mind as you're doing it, observe them without attachment. And you know, I thought that was pretty profound for me. That was really useful, because I guide a lot of people in basic meditations, and a lot of times they won't cooperate or they won't participate because they can't focus. And so that was a big help for me.
I love hearing that, because I think it goes back to the loving kindness, you know, and I think to me, like, it's so easy. Like, I'm a perfectionist, and it's so easy to pick on myself. And I remember when I first was learning meditation, I started my practice in 2006 reading people outside of my family and friends. It was like, okay, it's time to go out into the world. And part of that journey in 2006 was I wanted to learn to meditate. I wanted to, I'm constantly learning and evolving my own work and my own gifts. And I got really hard on myself. Like, gosh, I'm falling asleep, or I can't think, or I can't focus, or my mind's racing. Or for me, when I really start to go into meditation, then the spirit world starts communicating with me. And I'm like, whoa, like, I can't really get into that present space with myself. And so that was one of the purposes. I'm happy to hear that my intention came true.
Yes.
Because my intention was, like, it's okay. Like, just sit. I mean, in this day and age, to remove your device and to just sit and listen and watch and look and check in with yourself is enough.
Yes.
It's enough. That's all it is.
Yes. And that's a great statement. I am enough.
Yeah.
This is enough. Yeah, it really is. Yes, I want to talk about, this is something that I was really, I've struggled with other people many times, is when you meditate, you drift off to sleep.
Yes.
And it's happened to me, and one time I was meditating and Dee started laughing at me because she said, you were snoring. I said, yeah, but it's okay. You know what? If you go off to sleep, just meditate again. It's okay. And then when I read what you said about it, you could do it. You had someone who went to sleep every day for 3 months.
Yes.
And they were really literally catching up on that much needed rest at a deeper level.
Yes. I mean, it's amazing. If you fall asleep meditating, like, let it happen.
Yeah.
You absolutely are still getting the benefit. And if anything, you're going into more of a lucid dream state than
Truly.
you are, otherwise. So it's definitely important to notice. If we don't stop ever, right? Overdo, overcommit, kids and life and family and work and all of these things, and then you finally sit, of course you're going to fall asleep. So it's important to note that.
And every time you go to sleep, there's something happening.
Yes.
It seems like you're sleeping, you're in slumber, but you're really much deeper in growth, in development, in healing than you even realize. So yeah. So if you meditate and you go to sleep, don't be discouraged, guys. Keep on doing it.
Yes, it's so true. It's
Yes.
so true. Well, and I think that's true with all of the components. The crust or the foundation of Enlightenment Pie is meditation, contemplation, journaling, self-inquiry. And I think I kept it simple for this reason. Like, don't give up. Don't think you can't do it. Don't think you have to have special powers. Don't think, it's very simple to heal yourself if you give yourself space. The hard part is giving yourself space and time to heal yourself, and I think we all know that. Like, the hard part is creating the space to do the things that are really simple.
Yep.
Yeah.
So simple. Journaling. Oh my gosh, guys. I know that 90% of you out there are saying, I'm not journaling, and I get it. Really, I get it.
Yeah.
Years ago, I discovered a book called The Artist's Way.
I was just talking about that yesterday. I love this.
I love that book.
Yes, it's such a great book. Morning pages.
Yes. And I tell you, I got that book and I journaled for about 3 years. And I never, ever looked at one of my journals. And I filled up books. I mean, I filled up journals. And it's so, I don't know how to describe the feeling that I would have after I journaled. It was like all of this pent-up thought, and this was long before I started becoming really more aware, all of this pent-up thought or these frustrations or these delights or excitements or anticipations, all of them were just building up inside of me. And as I journaled, it's like, oh, here, let me take this out and put it down here. Let me take this out and put it right here.
Yes.
And years later, I came back and I came across my journals. Oh my gosh. It was like this, I'm almost introducing myself to myself.
Yeah. I have all my journals for the last 15 years.
Oh, cool.
And that's what this book is, by the way. I mean, this book came from my journals I went through my journals, and when I went through my journals, I discovered my process. So the 4 steps in Enlightenment Pie is become aware, become wise, practice, and trust. And it literally came from my books. I actually analyzed my own history in my journals.
Wow.
This is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, but I did, and I noticed all of my patterns, and I noticed negative patterns I want to heal, shadow patterns, right? But I also noticed this very distinct pattern or process I was following when I would go through these periods of profound healing. And that was how this book was birthed. And so journaling is amazing, and the morning pages is equally amazing because you're doing it in this free stream of thought first thing in the morning from the Artist's Way. But yeah, I mean, I journal every day. I really have since I was a little kid. I actually, and I think I talk about it in the book more than once about going out to the oak tree in Iowa behind my house, growing up with my notebooks, and I'd write. So I've been journaling a long time, and I've saved all of that, and I have poetry that I've written, and you know, also patterns. You know, you see, like you said, you're introduced, you like read, and you're like, oh, I see my shadow work right here. Like I wrote about this 16 times in a month. You know,
really.
Certain things that came up year after year after year. So I buy a new journal every year, and I use that journal pretty much for the year, and then it's time to get a new one. So that's kind of my own process, but you don't need anything fancy. I mean, I use simple notebooks and just write. Yeah.
Some people don't have good handwriting. Can you journal on a tablet?
You know, that's an interesting question, isn't it? I think so. I think I prefer handwriting because I think when you handwrite, there's a different energy to it.
I call it multisensory perception.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That said, I do journal on my phone now every once in a while. So I kind of have my notes on my phone, and then I also have my handwritten journal. So I've kind of integrated the two, I think, in the last couple of years. So I do think there's power. Writing anything down, do it. Handwriting, I think there's power to it. I will say this. When you're doing shadow work, so when you're doing self-inquiry, I would handwrite it. Because you've got to work that energy out of your system, and it's different when you're typing.
Yeah. And I'm old school, but I'm of the school of thought that when you use your hand to write the words that are expressing your feelings, you are not only expressing your feelings, but you are actually releasing them onto the page and expressing them in a way that you could never see through self-introspection.
Yeah.
And that's my thought, but you know, I don't care if you do it on your phone or your tablet or by your hand, guys. Journaling is powerful. It's a powerful way to discover self. It's a powerful way to do that shadow work. And it's a great way to find out what you really want in life, I think. You know, for me, it's just been a really, and I don't do it now, but I'm definitely going to be getting into it again very soon after reading this book. It's a real inspiration.
Yeah. Well, and there's plenty of prompts. I mean, that was something I wanted to put in the book. Is I have these sections called cutting into.
Oh yes.
And pull one of those guys up, and those have self-inquiry questions for you, so you can really work through these prompts in the book as part of your activities. And I did that on purpose because sometimes you need a prompt. You know, you need to think about what you want to journal about. And so those are marked in the book. Yeah, there you go.
So there's little sections that are called cutting into it. For example, I'm just going to do
do it.
Okay, so I'm going to grab my glasses. My eyesight is... Okay, so this was part of that exercise we did last night. So cutting into it. So after the activity, it says, how does my body feel? Where do I feel pain, soreness, inflexibility, heavy? Where do I feel light, open, strong? So as you're doing this exercise and you feel your body, it's so powerful. I mean, I was doing it yesterday and said, I feel sore in my knees. I feel strong in my arms. I feel really very light in my spirit. And so as I read it, I was answering these questions as I went along. Activity. Place your hands on your body. Put your hands on the areas of your body where you carry weight. Ask yourself the following inquiry questions. How does this weight feel? What emotion is here? What other messages, images, thoughts, feelings come up for me when I touch this area? And I got to tell you, I was so surprised. I did not expect this profound of a response from myself. You know,
Wow.
It was very cool. It was very cool for me. And then, then it just gives you some kind of guidance. For example, you may place your hands on your stomach and see a yellow light, or feel the anxiety of your life being carried in this space. By becoming aware of what is going on within your physical body, you will begin to build a relationship with it. So when we talk about like wholeness means as within, so without, or balance top to bottom, inside and out, And so for me, when I read these words, it's like, this is my mission in life. I want harmony.
Yes. Yes. You want your body to operate in full balance.
Yes.
And that's true in Tibetan shamanism, that's true in Ayurveda, it's true in all of these different holistic practices that we have. Is I don't think that we have a good relationship with our body in our society in general.
Western society is kind of disconnected.
Very disconnected. And so when you think of like intuitive diet, which I talk about in the book, you can't even get there. You can't even get to a place where you can intuitively know what your body needs if you don't have a relationship with your body and you don't talk to it, don't connect with it. And so, that step one is kind of like, I have a body. Because that's the other thing, right? The 90s and the 2000s was, in metaphysical community, was it not about leaving your body?
Yes.
Everybody was focused on
meditation.
Transcendentalism. Everybody wanted to leave their body, astral projection, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, all these things. Everybody wanted to leave their body. And so what I've noticed as a spiritual teacher and a coach is, we all got to get back in our bodies, right? Like, we got to get in here. We're all out. I want to lucid dream. I want to be out of my body. Well, that's great, but we also have a body. We came here to be in this body, and whether or not you're regretting your decision, you're in the body, and we've got to have the experiences. And so I think it's important for us to say, wow, I have a body. I'm in this body, and I need to take care of this body. And that is profound acknowledgement, I think, by itself, because it's very easy, and I fall into it too, so y'all, like, I'm the same. And I shared that in my author's note in the beginning of the book. There's no cure. It's not like, oh, I lost 100 pounds and I'm forever healed. It's okay, like, when I get off track and when I get off kilter, I know how to get back in, and it always starts the same, which is, I have a body, I'm in my body, I've been denying my body. Why do we deny our body? For the same reason we deny our shadows, because we don't want to see it, we don't want to deal with it, we don't want to fix the problems, we don't want to take action. It's hard.
Yes.
It's hard to be a human being.
It's hard to, and I can only speak for myself, but I mean, it's hard. Growing up, I remember I just hated myself because I had such bad acne. I thought I was the most ugly person on earth. I did. I had such low self-esteem. I was so, embarrassed to go anywhere. And then I told this friend of mine, and he goes, "What? I never even noticed you had acne. Look at my glasses." And I'm going, "Oh, I never even thought you had them. I never even thought about it." And it's like so much. We are so burdened by this self and we despise it. We dislike it, and it's like, embrace that thing. Love this body. This is one you have, and you know what? You're going to have it the rest of your days. Make the best of it.
Yep.
Throughout the book, you talk a lot about Ayurveda.
Yeah.
Would you talk a little bit about that?
I will. Ayurveda is...
Ayurveda, excuse me.
Yeah, no, you're fine. It's an ancient science from India. It was written out in the Vedic scriptures. So in the Vedas, there's Ayurveda, there's yoga, right? So those all work together. Ayurveda is really about balancing the elements in the body. And the reason I went into Ayurveda was really organic. My book is about Ayurveda, and I didn't even know it when I first started. It's really intuitively eating, and it's about noticing what's happening in the body. So, for example, we're in Vata season right now. Vata is a dosha in Ayurveda, or an imbalance. That's what dosha means, actually. Vata season is air and ether. That's the elements. And so when you think of Vata, you think of wind, you think of the dried out leaves, right, in the fall. Like right now, everything's dry and brittle and cold, and the air is thin. That's vata. Well, when vata gets out of balance, think of those leaves that kind of get brittle and broken up. That's just like your skin, right? It starts to dry out. We're in Colorado, right? High elevation. Our skin starts to dry out. So what do? We're going to oil the skin. We're going to, in the Himalayas, right, they drink yak butter tea. People have heard of bulletproof coffee, right? Buttered tea, buttered coffee. That brings oils into the body, and just like you put oils on your skin to be able to bring balance. If you get too dry, too brittle, too cold, too imbalanced right now, your body starts to fix it by overproducing lubrication. And what is overproducing lubrication? Sinuses, mucus, right?
Wow.
So we get all of these, it's cold and flu season. Well, that's because we're not balancing out the body. So the idea of Ayurveda, here's why I love it. Going back to what we were saying, it's actually acknowledging that we are not perfect. However, it's noticing when you are imbalanced and not perfect that you can rebalance it through the elements. And so that's an example of where we're at right now, is like if you can oil your skin and ingest the right oils, eating avocado, right? This time of year, the stews that get that oil slick on the top, right? You know, those kind of stews are so good. Or like when you cook chorizo and it has all the oil in the pan, right? Like that's what you need right now to prevent things like cold and sinus infection, flu, those things from happening. So that's what Ayurveda is. It's really this delicate balance of the elements in the body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I love how, you know, the second half of the book, you really talk a lot about, well, you start talking about candida and parasites, and oh my gosh, I was talking about the Rife machines that I have, that's frequency, and I used that last week for Flaciolopsis busci, which is a parasite that we get associated with cancers. And I don't know if 100% of us are filled with or have parasites, but I would say probably at 90 to 95% of us have parasites.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I had 3, so I definitely got one that kind of tipped me over the edge, but I was not traveling, not doing anything in Denver, Colorado, got parasites and nearly died from it. I mean, it was really destructive. I went jaundice, I was yellow, you know, for my liver. I had a parasite in my liver, I had one in my frontal lobe, and then I had a systemic one. And like you said, the systemic one came from water, and it could have been from any of the lakes in Colorado I'd been in my whole life. I probably had it for a really long time and didn't know it. So yeah, parasites are really easy for us to like cohabitat with, and for them to be in the body. So yeah.
You mentioned candida, and I went on a fast last week, just a day and a half, and I got to tell you, man, at the end of that second day, I don't know what, and that was before I had really started reading because I didn't get the book till Friday, but I felt this almost a lightness in myself, and not just because I hadn't eaten, not a weight loss. I felt like, I don't know, something just kind of expelled from you during the fast. Does that make sense? It
does make sense. And yeah, candida is an interesting journey because we all have candida albicans in our body, and it's not in allopathic medicine. They don't really test for it. They don't really understand it. So you really have to go to a holistic or an integrative or a functional doctor. And that's part of the work that I do now, primarily is work on cleansing candida, parasites, and mold toxicity. And yeah, when you start to eliminate candida, because think about these are like little bugs that live in our body that are sentient beings. So they have a consciousness. And so when you talk about that lightness or that expelling, when you experience a die-off or a removal of these little beings, all of a sudden you're more you, right? Because you're not living in symbiosis with these other consciousness. I actually experienced, with the parasites, some people talk about parasitic consciousness, where I could feel them overtaking my own thoughts. I could feel that dark energy in my space because they talk about if you have severe candida, when it's cloudy out, you can feel very depressed. And I had those experiences where if anything was happening with my environment that was like depressing me, it was it was a magnified like times 1,000. It was really crazy how that works. Yeah, yeah.
So the book really goes into in depth on those topics, and it also goes into you mentioned intuitive diet. I love that
Yes.
term. What is that intuitive? What's an intuitive diet? And man, this time is going so fast.
I
Oh my
know,
God,
I
we need
know.
2 hours.
Yes, well, I can always come back. We need to talk more for sure. Yeah, intuitive diet is really, once you build that relationship with your body and you're connected with your body, is actually intuiting what your body needs. You can really start to get clear. Once you clear out the processed foods, the sugar, the inflammatory foods like dairy, you start to clear all that away, it becomes really obvious what you need. You'll be like, wow, I'm really craving metal. Like, I need something high in minerals. Or, you know, a lot of us women crave chocolate, and it's a whole thing, right? Everybody loves chocolate. But there's a real reason behind it, and it's because most women are deficient in magnesium that's found in chocolate, especially around our cycles. So we're like craving all this chocolate, but what we really need is magnesium.
Wow.
So intuitive diet isn't just about food, it's about, hey, I know I need magnesium, and soaking in a magnesium Epsom salt bath to get that into your skin. But intuitive diet is, to me, a much more natural way to live rather than trying to follow some kind of diet. You know, it's really about, what does my body need right now? Gosh, I really need something hot or spicy, or I'm feeling, you know, in Ayurveda they talk about the 6 tastes, or the gunas, the qualities. Those are all part of intuitive diet. So it's really understanding what your body needs and giving it what it needs, rather than denying what it needs. Or, you know, when we eat all the processed foods, you know, our palate changes, right? Like, I remember...
No doubt.
Yeah, I remember 30 days into no sugar, you know, I was eliminating parasites. And when you're eliminating parasites or candida, and really even detoxing mold, you want to get rid of all the sugar in your diet. And that includes most carbohydrates, too. So you're, like, really, like,
Bread,
vegetables,
pasta.
protein, yeah. It's all that other stuff's gone, even rice. And I remember, like, 30 days in, I ate some lettuce, and I was like, wow, like, lettuce is sweet. Who knew? You know, you don't even notice those things.
Wow.
Because your palate is so overwhelmed by all the things that we eat today that we shouldn't.
Wow.
And so, yeah, intuitive diet, you've got to clear everything away so that you can intuit, you can sense, you can taste. You're enhancing your senses.
That's very good to know. I mean, years ago I used to do 5-day fasts, and I mean I never even had a problem with it. And you know, as I've gotten older, it's like, man, 2 hours. But I got to tell you guys, if you have any inclination to develop your health, I would say fasting is a really good start. I mean, because the sugars and the processed foods and the garbage and the additives and hormones and steroids, garbage in our bodies, it needs to be flushed on a regular basis, and just toss that out there.
Yeah.
But I really like how you put together meal plan. No, not necessarily meal planning. Oh yeah, I want to forgive me for bouncing around. There's pulse checks in the book, and so you know, as you're going through the book, it's really good that you look at what you're doing and what you're learning and make sure that you're on track with where you want to be with your, you know, what you get from this book. So it's really useful tools to make the book more beneficial to yourself.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, and I actually will share that pulse checks are something I'll be offering in my community as we go through. We're going to be going through the whole book next year in my community. I have a home study application in a community and a YouTube community, and we're going to go through this the whole year, but I offer monthly pulse checks for my community. So we actually go through these every single month and look at where are we all at and what questions do we have and what do we need, because it's support, right? Like
Yes,
there's so
yes.
much to take in and to integrate, and you need that support. So yeah.
Becoming Wise. I love the title of that, and then as I read more, it was like, oh, that makes really good sense. You know, I think being centered really is connected to wisdom. You know, and I think knowing thyself is directly connected to wisdom. And as you go through the tools that are listed in this book and you apply them, I really believe that there's something inside you that you didn't ever know you had before. A good thing.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think the whole key to the book is enlightenment, is enlightening yourself.
Yes.
If somebody wants to find this book, where do they need to go?
Well, so you can get this book anywhere. So it's Amazon, Barnes & Noble, like it's all the different outlets as well. You can also go to my website, which is lisamgunshore.com, and you can find the book there too. I have the ebook on my website and links directly to this book as well. But yeah, it's everywhere, so you can find it. There was a previous edition that's still on Kindle, but I highly recommend getting my newest edition that just came out because it's much more cohesive, I think, than the first time, right? So
and it feels good in your hands. I love books. It's a curse I have, but this book, I'm not kidding you. When we went to go pick it up last Friday, I walked out to the car and I'm like, oh, this book feels good. I did. My wife laughs at me because I'm really attached to my books, but it really doesn't just feel good. It makes you feel good. As you get further into the book, it talks about everything from spices to putting together your dietary plan. Much throughout the book, she talks about the elements, the earth, air, fire, water, and space.
Yes.
Ether. And as you develop your understanding of these things, you understand that each of them has a correlating energy within your own body.
Yes.
And there's a way to turn on the switch, if you will.
Yes.
Or to get the most out of your energy and your water or your fire, your purification. Applying these principles is so useful and beneficial that you will not regret it. You will not regret it because the better you make yourself feel, especially I'm up there in years, and I'm not dying, but I've got a few years behind me, and I want to make myself feel the best I can for these remaining years. I'm not midway on that continuum. I'm not midway. I'm at at far end. And if you're at any point in your life where you would want better health, or you would want to have better self-knowledge, or if you just want to discover more about realities, this book is a great tool. And it's not something that, again, you don't just pick this book, read it, and put it away. You pick this book up and apply the principles. Use this book, journal. Applying the principles doesn't just mean writing them down. It means internalizing.
Yeah.
Self-inquiry is such a powerful tool because man, know thyself means, who really am I? Who am I? Not just on the surface. I'm not just a painter. I'm not just an office manager. I'm not just whatever. I am not just Bob or Paul or Lisa. There's so much more that comprises who this entity is.
Yeah, I mean, it's learning about yourself.
Yes.
And who doesn't want to learn about yourself?
Oh, yes.
And I think, it's authentic in that I'm still learning about myself, and I've gained 30 pounds back of the 100 I've lost, right? And I'm a mom to 4 kids and working in life and working with people. And so there's always work to do. And so this was really meant to be a workbook. And I love that you love how it feels, because I wanted to create something that was really beautiful.
Oh, it is. It truly is.
Easy, simple.
It's easy on the eye.
Yeah. And the 5 elements, I mentioned I followed the Dalai Lama around for 7 years and worked as a volunteer, and I learned a lot and was really drawn to Tibetan shamanism, the bone tradition, which is very old, older than traditional shamanism in some ways, I guess. And it really is about the 5 elements. It really is about understanding the expansiveness of the sky. When you're feeling stuck and restricted and all those things, can you go outside and look at our gorgeous Colorado sky and our mountain range and bring that into your being?
Literally. I mean,
yes.
I don't want to say literally. Of course, you can't literally, but you can. You can absorb it, and
Yes.
you can emanate, radiate all of that goodness, all of that love, all of that energy, and it truly is available.
Yes, it is. It is, and it's in our food, what we put in our body. So again, when you think about If what you need is space, then you don't want to eat heavy foods.
Mm-hmm.
If what you need is to be in your body, because you're constantly out of your body doing all of these etheric things, then you do eat the root vegetables. You do put carrots and potatoes in your diet, right, and beets. So it's really simple when you think about it, like how you balance the body. And it's also very simple to see where you're out of balance. And I think that that's where the self-inquiry comes in, because it's a lot easier for us to beat up on ourselves for, I did eat the chocolate, or I did do this, rather than having forgiveness. I have forgiveness practice in the book. It's a Tao tradition that I put in the book, because I beat myself up all the time. I still do it. I mean, it doesn't matter how much healing you do. We get in those ruts, those ruts and those patterns of, self-loathing and self-hatred, and I should have done this and I should have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that forgiveness practice is where I come back to myself. I forgive myself, for not making those choices, and I'm going to make better choices today, and I am going to listen to my body today. And so that, to me, Enlightenment Pie is meant to be a workbook, a journal, something for you to connect in with when you need it. And it continues to be the framework for all of my work with people from here on out. Wow.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, I have so many things I want to talk to you about. Ayurvedic medicine versus allopathic medicine. In America, I'm probably over, Henry, forgive me. But in allopathic medicine, we are so conditioned to believe that it is an end-all and catch-all and the most ultimate of all medicines, and yet it's only 200 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Where allopathic medicine and Chinese medicine and Native American medicine and all these other medicines are thousands of years ago old.
Yes.
And we have the nerve to say, oh, they're alternative.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to push that, because I know that FDA is very, very strict on the regulation and words we say, and this book is not designed to treat, cure, or diagnose any disease or illness.
Nope.
Educational purposes only. But I will tell you this. Until you know yourself on the inside, you can never be comfortable with yourself on the outside, because you will always struggle with that chasm,
Yes.
that division, that separation. Bring unity through peace, through meditation, through understanding self-inquiry, and through just so many different tools that are readily available. And guys, I say this every week. Everybody is looking for a hero. Everybody's looking for a hero. If you can't find one, be one. Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much. You've been a hero.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's been a treat, and reading your book has been a bigger treat. Guys, get this book. Order it today. I guarantee you will love what you see, and you will gain much from it. You've been watching The Weekend Boost. I am your host, Paul Lane. This is KUHS, the Stream on Melody Drive, guys. Thank you. Those of you who watch us every week faithfully, thank you. Those of you who are tuning in just now, thank you. I love you guys. I'm hoping next week I'm going to have Frank Davila, one of the co-founders of the Kalma organization. He's got some really exciting things we'll be talking in the next 2 weeks, guys. I love you. See you in 2 weeks.